Call the board meeting to order. Welcome, everybody. Glad you're here. And call to order the Grandview Heights School Board of Education meeting. We'll start with a call to order and roll call. Beth, would you?
Mr. Bodie?
Present.
Mrs. Gebhardt? Here. Mr. Gousset?
Here.
Mrs. Matney? Here. And Ms. Wassman?
Here.
Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let's move to the minutes. Do I have a motion on the minutes of the last meeting?
I have a question. In the last minutes, we talked about, or the last agenda, we did a reimbursement for homecoming supplies, and then I saw in this one, we're doing it again. So are those two separate things? We're not doing it twice. We're not reimbursing twice.
Was it under the then and now certifications?
I don't know. It was to Maria Ione. She's a senior. I know she organized a lot of it. So
Yeah,
I
so
didn't
we
know
did
if
have a
it was-
couple different students purchase things.
Okay.
That they were reimbursed for.
Okay, so it just must have gone over time. I just didn't want to
Or
be
different
reimbursing
students.
twice. Oh, it's the same name, but,
So we did have the same student actually, that I reimbursed 3 times, so if
Oh.
it's, yeah,
okay, I bet that's it.
yeah, that, I think he was on the list more
Okay.
than once.
Okay.
It was Andy Culp on the list more than once. Just check.
Not today.
Not today, not this time.
Is there a motion?
No other questions?
Moved, yeah. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion on the board minutes from last meeting? Beth, would you call the roll?
Mr. Bodie?
Aye.
Mrs. Gebhardt?
Aye.
Mr. Gousset?
Aye.
Mrs. Matney?
Aye.
And Ms. Wassman?
Aye.
Recognitions, Andy.
Are there any guests that would like to speak at this time?
You don't have any.
No, there are none. Oh,
Great.
We do have I think we do have a hearing of the public.
Okay.
One, is
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna get on to that next, but that's all right.
Oh, I'm sorry. I
You're good.
apologize.
Welcome, you have, we'd like you to state your name and your address, and you have 5 minutes to speak to the board. Glad you're here, and we welcome hearing from you.
Well, my name is Rowan Mueller. I live at 1227 Lincoln Road.
And my name is Henley Mueller, and I also live at 1227 Lincoln Road.
Yeah, and we are student leaders of the Bobcat Anti-Racism Collective.
We are grateful to be in a school that offers clubs like BARC, and we want to share our support for continuing honesty in education. BARC is a group composed of student leaders that actively try to combat racism and raise awareness of past or ongoing issues, mainly concerning race. We have hosted movie nights, general meetings, and have provided resources to combat racism. It is valuable to learn about the past in order to correct and acknowledge our previous mistakes. Ignoring issues such as racism does not make it go away. There are House bills being proposed across the country, including Ohio, to limit honesty in education and the discussion of divisive concepts.
We are glad that our school does its best to promote diversity and valuable discussions, even about hard things at times, which help us grow as critical thinkers. We hope this continues because it unites our district and community. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, we have presentation on experiential learning.
Sorry. about
Now I will hand it off.
I apologize. Mrs. Olam?
So I'm excited because I am not presenting, but I get to work with an amazing team. Mark Alter is the Director of Experiential Learning, and Jessica Fields is an instructional coach that supports experiential learning K-8. Mark supports the high school, and they are a wonderful team to work with. And we have students here tonight to share with you as well, and I feel like when students share, it brings home how important this type of learning is. So I'm going to grab Mark's computer and get him hooked up, and then I will have them do the presentation, and I will just enjoy.
Good evening. So, as Angie said, Mrs. Olam said, we'll be talking about experiential learning, thus that fancy slide there. what I would want to talk about is, I believe in your package you have the experiential learning framework, and I know that, I believe you worked with that at your board retreat, so you're somewhat familiar with it. Just want to do a quick little Reader's Digest version, or Cliff Notes version, of what this is and how it came about. So this is a framework that we worked on last year that outlines what we think experiential learning in Grandview Heights can and should be. And it's based on meeting with people in other districts, talking to other educators, reading research, and then trying to take the best of all of that and turn it into something that would be ideal for Grandview Heights. So we weren't looking for one size fits all. We were looking for what does Grandview Heights allow us to do, what does it offer, and then how do we build from that. So I'm not going to read this to you. I know that might make you sad, but I think the key thing on this is at the top in blue, experiential learning is the process of learning by doing, by creating opportunities for students to engage in hands-on real-world experiences and reflections. Students exercise skills that connect knowledge to real-world situations. So what we're going to focus on tonight is, as I said, this is the framework that we have been working with. It's divided into 3 sections. So this first section is aspirationally what can and what should experiential learning be. This is what experiential learning might look like in practice. So what can we do to implement experiential learning? And then this gets into what the role of the teachers will be. But we're really going to be focused mostly in this first column tonight. All right, so I'm going to turn it over to you.
So in different areas of my career, I've asked adult learners, I've asked students in surveys, like, what's the best thing that happened this year? Or if I ask adults to reflect on their learning experience, typically a majority of the experiences that they share have a lot of those key components in. So I was really excited to have this as part of our CIP this year. It's really difficult though, because when we present to you, I have to figure out what out of all of these great things are happening to highlight. But I'm very excited as our first guest, Cora. Cora is a first grade student in Miss Newberry's class, and we are going to highlight one of those bullet points, which is that we try to provide students with a broad view of the real world and their community. And in first grade, we really talk about community and what it is to be a community member.
A community is a group of people that work together. We studied communities on Pebble Go and discussed about them. We also went to the community gardens. A community garden are a place where they grow food for people in need. What we did at the community gardens, we looked for worms, we looked at plants closely. We also jotted our favorite thing about the garden. Our goal was to get 2,000 items for the homeless. We got over 2,500 items. On Friday, we get to take Miss Sullivan to the wall. The blessing box was put in the ground today by the community gardens. The blessing box helps people when they don't have enough food or don't have money for the food. There's canned and boxed food.
Good job. Isn't she fantastic?
Very good.
Good job, Cora.
Well done.
Excellent.
So I'm excited because I see Jay in the background here, and we partnered with Elford, and they used some of the supplies from the old building or the new build to construct the blessing box. So we partnered with Columbus Blessing Box, and they installed these, and we found that there weren't any in close proximity to Grandview. So we have Boulevard Presbyterian Church. They're up the road from us. They have a community garden that they donate the food to, I believe, NEMAP. And they just installed it today. I went by, I saw them putting it in the ground. And so we, as first graders, each month, each first grade class has the responsibility for keeping it stocked so that people can come and grab food.
That's great.
You have any questions for Cora? Great job.
Great
Thank you.
job.
Great job.
Okay, you can go take a seat. So like I said, it's really hard to highlight a few things, so I'm just going to quickly mention that our fourth graders had a really awesome opportunity to go to Hopewell Park. They were sworn in as junior rangers, and they got to experience that. It was fantastic because in the experiential learning document, we talk about intent. So they have done field trips to the caverns before, but we really studied their social studies standards and their science standards, and this was a really good experience for them. Also, the third grade students, we partnered with Grandview Public Libraries, and we created a walking app with them, so it's aligned to their social studies standards. And you guys can do it, so you can download the walking app, take a tour of Grandview, and our high school students with Jenny Betts, they recorded the voiceovers. So we had a big day today. Today was BizTown in fifth grade. It's like the culminating experience. So I'm gonna invite Nina up.
Oh, it was so fun.
Nina is a wonderful student to work with, has a great personality, and I was like, who am I going to pick? And I went with someone, and then she's like, hey, I got this. I'll do it, Miss Fields, I'll do it. And I really like that because when we look at the standard, we're looking at developing self-confidence, leadership, collaboration skills, and helping them practice those professional skills. So fifth grade is a really great starting point for that. We partnered with Fifth Third Bank. It's called the Young Bankers Club. So earlier this year, they started just learning about money and budget. And then today was BizTown. Let me bring this up for you real quick.
Well, at BizTown, we learned about all different kinds of skills you have to develop for the future, like how we learned about interviewing for the jobs we wanted, how to dress for the jobs we wanted, making eye contact, preparing over time. And when we went to BizTown, we learned about preparing for what you're going to spend, managing your own money with checkbooks, and we all got our own personal jobs. You can see me up there. I was production director. I recorded the ads for each business, and then I sent it over to the DJ, disc jockey, and then he'd put them on air, although my DJ never put my ads on air.
It's a good learning experience. There are other jobs?
Yeah, like CEOs for companies that they price items to try and make a good profit, which we learned about in class.
Now, I know Miss Malley did a career explorations with you too before you guys went. What was your career interest right now?
Well, my main one is fashion designer, although I also got designer for like interior designers and drama teacher, director, you know, stuff in the arts.
Yeah. Any questions for Nina?
Well done.
Great job.
Great job.
Great job.
She made eye contact and everything, just like
Yes.
she learned.
I agree.
She sure did.
Well, what I like about this too is it kind of gets them interested. We build leadership through middle school, and then when they get to high school, we really see students starting to select electives that align with their interests. So we talk a lot about student agency, that they find real life connections. It's not me saying, you're going to need this when you're older. They're naturally finding that. So I have two seniors now, so I'm very excited. We have seniors. I might have to bring this up for Stephen. Okay, no. Chai, you're just as tall. Okay, never mind. Look at this, you guys. What is going on? So I have Stephen and Chai, and I'm going to hand it over to them because they're prepared.
Hi, I'm Stephen Urian.
And I'm Chai Dobbs-Ewens, and today we're going to be telling you guys about our experience with Mr. Smith's Law and Order class.
First, we are going to be telling you about why we chose this class. I'm going to be honest, I chose this class because I needed another elective credit to graduate. But after taking this class for a semester, I've learned a lot about our law system and I've really enjoyed it.
Personally, I chose to take this class because I knew it wasn't going to be like your traditional class structure where you're given information and then you have to fill in a bubble on a piece of paper and be assessed on your learning. What I really liked about this structure was you are given a packet of work and you analyze case information and you pick a role on what you want to play when you present your final trial, and you put together this final trial and present your information to show your knowledge.
Now we're going to share some opportunities we've had outside the classroom to further our learning experience. We have taken 2 field trips that Mr. Smith has organized. First, we went to the Common Police Court in Columbus. We had 2 tour guides who worked there. They gave us a tour of the facilities, and we saw how the jury is selected and used in the trial. We even had the opportunity to speak with one of the judges at the courthouse and build a connection with him. We asked him questions to further our knowledge of his role and in the legal system. He gave us his card and told us we can get in contact with him and set up a situation where we can chat with him for a day. At the end of our field trip, we even got to sit in a real-life criminal trial.
Next, we went on a field trip to the Whitehall Police Department. First, we walked in and met with people who deal with criminals on a daily basis. We also were shown evidence that had been obtained and was being used for current court hearings or had been used already in court hearings. We also got a tour of their facility and saw their holding cells, interrogation room, shooting range, among many other things. What I thought was very interesting about this field trip is currently we are working and wrapping up a trial that deals heavily with custodial interrogation. And when we went and visited the Whitehall Police Department, they talked about how custodial interrogation was used in their jobs on a daily basis. I thought it was interesting that we got to see how what we're doing in class translates over to real life situations.
Now that we've discussed our experiences outside of the classroom, we want to talk about our overall experience with law and order in the classroom. Because how the class is structured, we have been able to take our time and work on understanding aspects of the trial of the criminal proceedings. Usually, we get our information about a case and study it. We pick out our roles if we want to represent the prosecution or the defense. And then we work on our opening and closing statements, direct examinations, and cross-examinations. At the end, we show our learning. At the end, we get our grade on how we present our trial. And the judge is Mr. Smith.
This gives us the chance to show what we know and have freedom with how we do it. I like how there isn't one correct answer with this class. Either side could win the trial. It just depends on who has a more compelling argument. Right now, we are wrapping up a trial, and Stephen and I are on opposing sides, and we have bets on who's going to win. It just shows how invested this type of learning gets the class. Everyone gets to pick their own role and what they do in the trial, and it really gets everyone involved and interested in their learning.
Overall, I think both of us can speak for our classmates that we look forward to going to that class every single day, and we've learned a lot from it.
Because of the structure of this class, we can feel comfortable to learn without having the stress of a paper-pencil test. We have both learned a multitude of things from this class and genuinely look forward to it because of how we're graded with presenting these trials to show our knowledge.
That's our little presentation. Do you guys have any questions for us?
No, awesome.
Excellent.
Well done.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, so just going to talk a bit about experiential learning. Just going to give you kind of a grand tour of some things that happen at the high school. We're just going through pictures. This could be hours worth of presentation, so but I promised I wouldn't do that. So one of the bullet points on our framework is to nurture curiosity and honor student choice, and you've seen some great examples of that. I want to stress that this doesn't happen just, in one isolated place in the classroom. This happens throughout our whole high school because of the culture of our high school. We have teachers who work together. We collaborate with the kids. Kids collaborate with us. So here's just one example. This is a student who was interested in astrophotography and was interested in also astronomy, and wanted to start to take pictures of outer space. But the problem is you have to have some specialized equipment for that. So this student decided he was going to learn what does it take to build the equipment that you need in order to get pictures like he has on a screen there. So for one of his research projects throughout the year, he worked with science teachers here at the school. He did research with contact people at OSU and other sources, and started 3D printing parts of old cameras to make the cameras do what he wanted. So I think this is a fine example of how we try to empower kids to follow their passions, to harness that, to take that momentum and help them move forward. This is a student who was curious about why do we have bottled water? Why would anybody pay for water? What's the difference between water? And I think when he started off the project, he was kind of curious, like lightly curious. But as he got more into it, it got into aspects of economics, environment. He said he learned a lot about, he was calling bottled water companies and asking them questions about their products. So he said he learned an awful lot about dealing with people. So that took on its own momentum. This is a student who said that she wanted to study hippies. She was really interested in the 60s. And she's, on the surface that was an interesting project, but it turned out that her interest was she wanted to know why were the 1960s such a ripe time for change? And why were there so many grassroots movements that made change? And what were the political climate? So this is another example of how in our school, teachers all come together. We put out a call and saying, does anybody know anybody who would identify themselves as a hippie who grew up in the 60s? And as it turns out, our media specialist, Aaron Engel, is good friends with somebody who was at Woodstock and now lives back in New York. But so this interview was set up so that Cammie, the student, could speak with Kathy, her friend Kathy, and they're still in contact. So she's learning, still continuing to learn a lot about politics. She's learning a lot about, again, social change, which is a strong interest of hers. So this has been an ongoing learning experience. I promise I'm not going to go through each of these in detail, but again, helping students discover, develop insight into their own interests, passions, and values. Sometimes the best way to discover what a child is passionate about is just set the conditions for them to discover that. So, you see that we have a student who is interested in playing guitar. The one at the bottom was interested in interior design, and the student up in the top was interested in law enforcement. If anything ever came up out of COVID that was good, was video conferencing now feels normal, so we can bring experts into the school. But these were all launching points for students to discover their passion, but more it was a launching point for them to discover what kind of learners they are, to build confidence through the experience of learning about something they're passionate about. We connect students with community members as much as possible. The top left, we had a student who was interested in black holes and antimatter. Annika Peter is a parent at Stevenson. She's also a professor at OSU who is she is the director of the cosmology department. And so she met with one of our students. Of course, John Evans has been speaking with kids about starting a business. Top right is a former student of ours who came back to speak with students. She is also the first student to ever get a foundation grant. So, you talk about experiential learning. She decided that there was a need to create the gardens that we have, and so she worked on that. And she also taught a class 1 year. So again, experiential learning. Okay, and then finally, we provide students with opportunities and tools to reflect on and refine their thought process. This is a very important aspect of experiential learning, as any kind of learning. If you don't create the time to reflect on your learning with intention, then a lot of the value of the learning is lost. So these are just some examples of different ways that we work with kids to reflect on their learning, to leave breadcrumbs for their thinking, and to, you know, if you will, create a shelf life for their learning. So it's just a quote that I happen to think really is valuable. We do not learn from experience alone. We learn by reflecting on experience. So that's part of the learning process. And then finally, creating opportunities for students to have an authentic audience. And by authentic, meaning somebody besides their peers in the classroom, somebody besides the teacher who is giving them a grade, an audience outside of the context of school. So we create many opportunities for our kids to have an audience outside of the school. So the top left one is an example of a learning fair that we did here last year. The person on the computer is a Harvard professor who was working with one of our students, made a connection, and our student was sharing a project with her. And bottom left one is, we had two students who, if you might remember the Amplify art show that they put on a couple of years ago, they went to teachers and said, we want to do an art show that represents different cultures. And from that point on, they're in charge, and it's our job to make that experience come to life for them. Okay, so I think the driving question that we always come back to as teachers, as educators, with experiential learning is what opportunities are we creating? What conditions are we setting for kids to discover their passions and to follow their passions and learn from their passions? Any questions?
Thank you, Mark and Jessica. The board members have questions?
I have one question. So how do kids get to have these opportunities? Do they have to take a certain class, or is this offered through any of the classes that they are participating in?
I would say it's not limited to any particular class. You know, I have the good fortune of having a class where it's sort of a sandbox for playing with these types of things, but one of the things I appreciate, of the many things I appreciate in this school, is kids feel very comfortable going to their teachers and saying, I have an idea, and then we become co-learners. So, and I think our students, well, I know that our students know that, that they can feel comfortable opening an idea up to a teacher and having these experiences. Our kids are also they're very good at telling us what they need. They're very good at advocating for themselves. But again, I think that's because of the culture of the district and the culture of this school. All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And to the students as well. Excellent job.
Yeah. I think it's really cool that in so many of these cases, it wasn't just like the topic. Like you mentioned, the one specifically that comes to mind is the water one that you said, you know, you had kind of a curiosity about water. But it wasn't just that subject that he learned about. It was like interpersonal relationships and how to communicate, how to reach out, how to like explore these next level. It's just, it reminds me of like a study abroad experience where you get, it's not just about the subject you're going to study. It's what you learn about yourself and what you learn about how to interact in this world. And I just think it's really cool. I'm impressed.
Absolutely. Yes, and I think that's where the reflection becomes very important, because the types of experiences you're talking about are going to outlive the content. It's not necessarily content driven, so I totally agree. Thank you.
Of course.
Sure.
Supposed to sit here?
You tell us where to go,
Where do we
Haley.
go?
Go behind the board.
You want us to sit or stand?
It's fine.
Let's scrunch together a little bit.
Sure.
Such a great job.
Mr. Harvey invites every other day. Today's soft day.
Stand right here. Fields, Mr. All.
There you go. At least it was closed.
Oh, I've been there. Been there many times.
Do you need, that's all. There we go. I did it again. Jessica, come on.
Put me next to the seniors. I see what you're doing here.
Everybody smile, it's almost for a break. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming.
Sounds different than when I went through school.
Oh, yeah, in such a good way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. More of that.
All right. Again, to Andy for department and building reports.
So I don't believe there's anything official for that. However, I can segue into the superintendent's report.
Please do.
Okay. All of you have a copy. I'm going to not read every bullet, but did want to highlight a few. The first is, at Stevenson Elementary, the building hosted a Friendsgiving food drive to support Boulevard Presbyterian Church and the Blessing Box Project, which we learned a little bit about here just now. And a shout out to Jay and the Elford team for partnering with us on that. At Larson Middle School, the fourth grade team partnered with Make-A-Wish and participated in their Macy's Holiday Letter Campaign to raise money awareness and in support and celebration of two classmates who are Wish recipients. At Grandview Heights High School, kudos to our vocal music program. They performed 7 community concerts, one of which I had the good fortune and privilege of seeing at the Tri-Village Rotary, and it was truly exceptional. Wanted to spotlight a couple district-wide notes, and that is that Grandview Heights High School and LMS are set to move, which is a major transition both for the current Larson 4-8 staff as well as the high school. Special shout out and thank you to all of the staff, but also to Mr. Buffer, Sam Belk, Sean Hinkle, and Matt Wine for their tireless leadership and preparation for that major move. Also wanted to thank our Kids Club, who will be providing full-day childcare for over 50 children during the extended holiday break, December 19th through the 22nd, and then again January 5th and 6th, and to our partners, the Grandview Heights Parks and Recreation Department, for conducting a special winter day camp to accommodate for the extended break. In case you didn't know, Saturday, January 7th at 11 a.m., Grandview Heights Schools is inviting our entire community staff for a ribbon cutting and open house at the renovated high school in the brand new renovated auditorium. So I hope everybody is able to attend. And then we would also just like to share that this week news. So, I mean, I can remember when I was just, a little kid. We won like the Cub Scout baseball, shocking, tournament. And our team got their picture in This Week. And I was probably like 7 years old. This Week News. And it was the biggest deal. And I am sad to say that This Week is disbanding. And so I do think there's real implications to, community news and the relationship that you have with the reporters and the wonderful spotlight cameos in print copy or online that This Week provided Grandview Heights and Marble Cliff residents, along with a host of other local communities. And so I do think it's not an insignificant deal, and certainly there's a part of me that's sad about it, quite frankly, but it is worthy of sharing. That's all I got.
This isn't really our purview, but do you have any idea whether the Dispatch, because I know, that they really are a subsidiary of the Dispatch. Do you know whether the Dispatch will try to increase their outreach to local communities to do sort of that side of thing?
So I'm not an expert, but I did ask that question. And here's what, and I got a vague answer. But in a general way, what I heard was, in particular in the areas of quite frankly, sports, you will see continued coverage, and they'll have maybe some boots on the ground periodically. In particular, perhaps if a particular, soccer team, for example, was to go back to back and win 2 state championships, but I think my sense is, unfortunately, outside of that, maybe perhaps like a really big event. For example, a ribbon cutting might get covered by the Dispatch of a renovated high school, but a lot of the other really great stories that This Week used to cover, many of which you observed here,
camp invention or something
exactly
small,
exactly
worth covering.
Correct. Yeah. So there's a part of me that's pretty sad about it.
Yeah, it's too bad.
Andy, On the subject of the upcoming planning for the next few weeks, and the subject of that we had talked as a board and made some decisions on for planning of the break and changing the dates and all that. And I think just wanted to make sure that we understood as a board kind of how that all landed. What's the plan for the period of time where, because we extended.
Yes.
And put it in your hands to make sure that we had, the correct use of that time and everything, and for all the schools. So just wanted to see if you could lay that out a little bit and see if the board had any questions and make sure that we're all.
I'm glad you asked. So, and I might have Angie just come up to the podium here and to support me in particular, because her involvement in planning the Stevenson Professional Development Days in particular, she's quite candidly more knowledgeable. So a couple things. One, 4 to 12 will be moving. So packing, moving, unpacking, and then preparing their classrooms. And then Stevenson Elementary, we have purposeful and intentional professional development planned for them as well. And would you mind, Angie, giving us an overview of those days?
Sure. So the state of Ohio has passed a law around reading for dyslexic students, and they have required that all K through 3 teachers be trained in the science of reading and the understanding of dyslexic characteristics. They're allowing K and 1 teachers this year and 2-3 teachers next year. We've decided to use the 2 days that we have to start the state modules to get about half or a little more than half of that training finished in the 2 days that they were granted without students. And then we will use the rest of the time, teachers will use late start and a staff meeting. And I think that will then cover all of that training. We do have quite a few teachers at Stevenson that have Orton Gillingham training, so that allows them to be free of the 18 hours. So they will be working on the next step, or the next phase of the law, which is a universal screener. Right now, there's only 4 approved in the state of Ohio. We don't have any of them. So they will be, on those days, the teachers that already have the Orton Gillingham training, they will be working to look at those screeners and coming up with an alignment of what kind of assessments do we already use, what can we get rid of, and they're going to make a recommendation to me because I'll be doing the module work with the teachers. So they'll be working with Mrs. Sullivan, and I will be working with the teachers doing the modules. And then our special area teachers, believe it or not, most of them are doing a book study or some type of independent project that they're getting Ashland credit with me as an adjunct. I've written courses for them. So Laura Bova is going to be working on an anti-racism art teacher course that she and I created. Tom Gilbert is working on an athletic mindset. Emily Dupre is helping write the curriculum for a Spanish 1A, 1B class in the middle school. And Christy, of course, is moving the library. So everybody has something to be working on.
And then can I ask about the 412? We talked a lot about how for various teachers, the amount of time it takes to move differs greatly. Like in art and science in particular, a lot of stuff, a lot of things to do. It might not necessarily be the same for everyone. If they finish in fewer days, how do they use that time?
Mm-hmm. So great question. One of the, they will primarily be helping art and science and library. So for example, there was a individual math teacher. We were in a smaller committee meeting talking about this very topic 2 days ago. And there was a math teacher in that subset committee talking about moving and time spent. And this math teacher said that it was their belief that they wouldn't need all of the days for themselves, and that it was this math teacher's plan to then go help art that may need more than the 4 days allocated. And it's my universal understanding is that any teacher that doesn't need that time will be helping other teachers move. will say also, there seems to be, also shared in that subcommittee by teachers 4 to 12, some anxiety, that might be strong, but nervousness about setting up their new classroom with new furniture and familiarizing themselves with the building, so that in the event that a student needs to know where to go, when to go, and ensuring that they are most prepared and comfortable for when the students show up that first day.
I would agree with, I've met with a lot of 4 through 12 teachers, and it's kind of nice just to hear the camaraderie of, we will be there to help teachers, and I feel like that's a true sentiment to every teacher I've talked to so far.
That's great.
Is there part of the move-in, I'm looking over at Chris Dice, that I know, one of the experiences I had of moving in my last child to the dorm room, astounding when an IT person showed up and they were like, "Are you connected? Do you know how to do Wi-Fi? Any questions there?" And I thought, that's astounding that someone is like being proactive and knowing in a new environment that there's, we're now in the new century, and so I'm assuming you and your team are active too and making sure everyone's set up.
Yeah, this is actually convenient for us because the high school staff has already occupied this building, and those classrooms are set up the same way as these. So they've already been trained. So we don't feel like we're having to train 2 staffs. We just had a meeting the other day about the information that we're going to be sharing with the middle school staff that's coming over here. That those 2 days they're back early, we are going to be going around to their classrooms and making sure they know what all the controls are, how to turn things on, how to turn things off, because they do operate differently than what they had over there. But that's a great question, because that's already come up, and we thought about it with the high school, and we did that with the high school, and now we got to do it with the middle school staff.
Great.
The other thing I think are, and again, Nicole, for example, could talk about this in way more detail than me, but I know that the entire 4-8 staff and grade bands with students have come over here and toured this building, seen where their classroom is, where they're going first, the first period of the day when they show up. And my sense is that there's a high level of confidence and preparedness for students and staff in that way. Additionally, I do know that the high school will be starting their day in the brand new renovated auditorium. I know Mr. Belk has prepared a orientation. They're handing out maps, and I actually plan to be there for that as well. So I know that there are plans for the transition on that first day, because it brings about a lot of, it's new, even though it's the middle of the year. And finally, I know that Ms. Head and I and the administrative team are working on a communication to send out to families, outlining, what's happening on those days, where to go on the first day, and we're even evaluating potentially doing videos. I was told subsequent to our most recent meeting that Mr. Belk has already sent out a video. So I didn't even know that, or created one and hasn't sent it out.
Yes. I did want to say, just really quick, Sean at the middle school is also starting the day with an assembly. So they're starting, both buildings are starting as a whole school before they fan out.
Where do they do that? Here in the gym?
I think he's doing it in the gym. Yeah.
And they, if I have it correct, the 19th and the 20th, I might be wrong on my dates, we are packing up. The 5th and the 6th, we are unpacking, and Mr. Buffer will tell me if I'm wrong here. We do not have our teachers carrying the 20 tons of books.
Yep.
They're packing.
Is this one of them?
I know.
Yeah,
That's why I was like, I just wanted to confirm that this is the, no one's gonna slip a disc.
No, well,
We're not pushing baby grand pianos.
No.
Like, I just wanted to confirm that again.
yeah.
That's kind of the thing, and
Yeah.
everybody's excited to not move.
I know, like I've heard, so you get to teach 4 of our children, so that's.
In case you didn't know.
Yeah. we're like a sixth grade heavy board, but.
We gotta get
But
you one.
I've heard from both my kids, a fourth grader and sixth grader, they both have told me like that they've seen their classrooms, and so to Annie's point, it's exciting.
Nervously exciting.
Yeah.
So what happens? I know we've like been drilled on make sure a kid brings everything home, make sure they bring it home from the old middle school, and what happens to the stuff that gets left behind? That's not, is it just? I mean, I'm just
Are you talking
thinking
about
like
desks and chairs?
No, I'm
like
talking about our
sweatshirts.
kids' stuff. No, I know the
All of
lost in
Benjamin's
town gets it,
things
but
that he
like,
will not pack
what
up.
about like
Where do I go get 'em?
instruments?
Understood.
Like, I know they were all supposed to bring home their instruments. Hopefully, Mr. Heath and Mr. Stanley are probably on them every single day, like take home your instruments, but hopefully that kind of stuff doesn't happen. I know I ask my kids daily, like, do you have everything? Is it home? Is it?
Yeah. Well, there'll be a time period and walk through, like probably multiple days to make sure that there isn't any student materials of value that, and if there are, they'll be brought over.
They'll
here.
just be brought up.
And it's, that building's gonna be there for a minute, like it's
Yeah, I
not,
think it's in
we're out the
around January
6th, we're
25th.
demoing the 7th,
Right.
so.
Ish. Something like that. Close.
It's great, it's exciting.
Yeah.
It is exciting.
Great, thanks.
It's a little sad.
Appreciate
I
that.
honestly like, well, I'm a nostalgic person, but, you know, knowing that Friday's the last day there, I'm like, oh, I never went to school there. I've barely been in there, but I still get like teary about it. But this is more exciting.
Any other questions for Andy and team? Well, now that we're all excited, let's get the actual construction report to see if it's ready to go for us to actually do all that.
You better have nothing but good news.
Is this Jay's last report, or do we get him in
No.
January? Do we get you in January?
Yeah, we get them in
Yeah, I'm
January.
not
Phase
going-
three.
I'm not
Like
going
the
anywhere.
site plan and everything, do you get
Yeah,
it?
we've got phase 3 to talk about, so. But, yeah, major accomplishment was, you know, we got occupancy for the building to move in, all of those things that we've been talking about. And just like this was, you know, back in 2021, it's kind of a stepped process where the city of Grandview Heights wants to make sure it's safe to have supplies, furniture, things that are flammable. So we got that occupancy on November 16th, allowing all of that to happen. It also allowed basketball practice and weightlifting to happen, which has been ongoing, which is really cool. And then tomorrow at 9 a.m. is our final to move students and staff in. And it's, yeah, we're in really good shape. So you know, knock on wood, you're always nervous, but we don't foresee, you know, any issues. Chris and Colleen and Mike and team have all been working really hard and about making that happen. So that was a big deal. You know, you're gonna hear through what I have to say this month just about how busy Jim's been and his staff, and they've been really helpful to us. When you punch out, you know, 115,000 square feet of a renovated building, it could be a really laboring process. You know, for example, you know, a punch list item is just a deficiency, like a ding in a wall or a door that's not closing properly. We had 1,500 of those items when we started that punch list process. But what's allowed us to get into a really good shape is that, you know, Jim's taken a lot of time with us. We've done 5 different ones to help make the building smaller. So the whole building's been punch list. We're down to 350 items, I believe. And, you know, our goal is to be under 50 by the end of next week. So really a true accomplishment because of the team effort that allowed that to happen. If you've walked over there, the building's been final cleaned, except for the locker rooms, which the lockers showed up. The athletic lockers showed up this week. It was one of those supply chain disruptions that were supposed to be here. The original company went out of business, and it's actually taken a little bit to get here. So, very excited for the first basketball game on December 29th, and they have lockers for the players and the coaching staff to have their locker rooms on that game. So that was pretty cool. Upcoming, you know, we're going to support Jim and the teachers and the staff just however we can with moving in of all of those things. You know, he's had weight room equipment and wood shop equipment and band. You know, we reused the the band cabinets and shelving. And so there's just a lot on this plate, and that, a little bit of that anxiety and nervousness. We just want to be there and try to support however we can, so that's what we're working towards. And we're also making sure that we're training, gym staff, so that the facility staff can train the administrator or the teachers as well. And, we had our first training day, I think yesterday. It was a full day training. We've got 2 more to go because there's just that much equipment. We want to make sure we're prepared for a really solid startup when that time comes. So we're prepped for the basketball game on the 29th. We're prepared for the ribbon cutting on the 7th, and then the first day of school on the 9th. And we've also scheduled some of our staff to be there for that first day if the lights don't work or they start to flicker. We had some programming issues. We learned a little bit on this phase, so we'll be prepared hopefully to help any of those issues as they come about. And we're really not taking any time. I mean, we're on to getting prepared for the final site master plan for phase 3 or from here out towards First Avenue. And so there's about a week of, I know there's agreement with the city of Grandview for some police and fire training. It's going to happen the 2nd through the 6th. But even on top of that, we're going to be in the basement where they're not going to be, and starting to abate the building because, hazardous materials, if they become friable or means they get into the air, those can't come down with the building. But some of them can come and go to a special. So anyway, we're going to do some abatement the 2nd through the 13th, and Saturday and Sunday, the 14th and 15th. If all goes as planned, we will start to wreck the existing Edison middle school. And we're going to do that over the weekend. We're going to do this 90s edition where the gym and the cafeteria is. First, we're just going to knock it down and make it safe. Over the weekend, while no school or events are going to happen, we'll make sure that these doors are barricaded from the inside so nobody can walk out into a hazardous area, or that path between the 2 buildings will be blocked off as well. So that's it. We're rolling, and so we're prepared to start that next phase. We've worked with Andy and Sam and Sean on construction traffic, staff traffic, parent drop-off, student walking, and worked with the city as well. So this next phase, when we've got our fence up to protect the public from our construction activities, we're coordinated. All of that stuff is coordinated, and I think that's been shared. It's at least been shared with the city and with the principals, and we have a good plan for that as well. So I think that's it. The bleachers are being
The bleachers.
added to, we'll say, this week, and has been committed to being done this week, which I haven't heard any differently. So we'll be able to start basketball practice back in the gym next week.
So it'll close down temporarily to get that done, and then?
It's closed down this week.
Oh, it is this week, okay.
Well, no practice in
No
there
practice.
this week. They're still lifting.
And then they'll be there and ready to go for the 29th, you said is the first game.
Yeah, right. Which is cool. Really exciting. Kind of a sneak preview, to the whole thing. So.
Jay, could you talk just a little bit, you talked about the punch list and the doors and everything.
Yeah.
The difficult thing, which is the HVAC systems and getting all that right, and
Yeah.
I know that's a really difficult thing to have, one place not too hot and one place not too cold and what have you. Just what is the plan?
Right.
What are you doing in
Right.
advance of people moving in, and after they move in and, occupy?
Right. Good question. The systems have been up and running in some capacity since May, Memorial Day, right? Labor Day, September, Memorial Day. And they've also been balanced to the right CFMs and the right temperature controls. And that's done by the manufacturer. It's not done by us. And it's verified by your commissioning agent as well. So a lot of those steps
already been done and are in place and in hand. We did have the occasional situation where a unit may not run properly, or it shut downs, or there's an error of some sort in the automated system. But that would just be something that would be an unforeseen. Right now, we're ready as far as that goes already. We're started up. The RTUs are, as of today, already on the network, thanks to Chris and Matt, who jumped through some hoops after we turned over their rooms to them. Matt and Chris will say a couple days late, but but anyway, so did that answer your question?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I know there's a challenge. It's one thing to do that when nobody's in the building.
When nobody's
and then
in it, yeah,
people
yeah.
occupy,
Right,
and that
right.
changes the whole
You know,
flow.
good
Doors,
question, and might be something worth just looking back historically and how this phase went, and make sure that we're prepared to not have to learn from that time.
Where are your offices going to be now that both of these buildings will be occupied?
Right. We are mobilizing a trailer, excuse me, on the First Avenue parking lot.
Okay.
So that comes next week, actually.
The parking lot that now is like technically owned by the city, is that what you're
Yeah,
talking about?
mm-hmm, yep. That was part of, it was part of the discussion.
Yeah, I vaguely
so,
remember.
Yeah.
As we move towards phase 3, there'll be ordering of like fences and landscaping, some outdoor learning space
Yes.
stuff. Are there any delays or anything in that you know of?
No, not that I know of. So as of right now, change order 49, that was executed. All of those have been issued to the subcontractor partners, and all of those materials have been on order. Now, there are some, like the playground equipment, that is a long lead time.
Mm-hmm.
But Doug and Patrick and Concord Addis team have worked with Mid-States, the equipment provider, to improve those. So as it stands today, no, there's not any material that is in jeopardy of not making it by the start of school for the 23-24 school year.
Great, thanks.
Any other questions for Jay?
I don't think for Jay, I have some, I think I'm probably more directed to Andy, about, well, did they do like photo documentation of the old EILMS for, historical purposes?
archiving.
Yeah, so, Haley, track me on this. I'm almost positive, but not 100%, which is why I'm asking you to help me. I believe we had the Buscemi's go through EILMS and videotape the entire building for posterity's sake. Am I remembering accurately?
We reached out to them. They did the kindergarten annex, they've done the high school building.
The old high school building, pre-renovation.
Renovation, yeah.
Right, and they will do LMS before it comes down.
Okay,
It will do.
that's what I wanted to make sure. I just wanted to make sure that we had,
Yeah, and
Documentation proved that it existed,
yeah.
what it looked like.
I'm a person who loves to look back at those like historical society photos and things like that. You just want to make sure you have a history of it all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
We have landscaping.
and right now, it's also in our scope of work to salvage a couple of the stone entrances that have the engraved lettering for the
Right,
Edison
right.
building, so we'll preserve those as well.
Do we have anything budgeted to do with those, or are we preserving them for later use, essentially?
Great question. Nothing in stone. We did
Pun intended.
evaluate.
Hey,
Didn't even mean to do that.
act like you did.
We did talk about maybe turning some of them into benches, but nothing is
Yeah,
concrete.
Nothing is set in.
Set in stone, yeah.
Can't even avoid it if you wanted to.
Did Architectural Salvage has gone through the thing already? Will there be a link? I'm looking probably, because I think this might be Haley
We think
or
it's Jim.
someone, one of you, just like a kind of blast to our community members, to the alumni, hey, if you do want anything.
So I know Stephen Mueller, Jesse Truitt, ironically, Stevie Mueller's 2 kids were here.
Yeah.
And Jim Buffer worked with Architectural Salvage and to identify certain items that will be for sale. We get a certain percentage of what is sold.
No, I understand, I'm saying, will we do a blast to remind our people, like the alumni
Gotcha.
association?
You mean now I'm with you,
Yes.
sorry.
It's okay.
That's a good
I do
idea.
that. What, yeah.
they want to-
Yeah, if
Yeah, like
someone
a-
from
like a
the class of
communication.
59 would
Totally.
like a locker.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. I had actually been asked the question if we would sell any of the bricks to the building.
So, interestingly, we have talked about that, and what our current plan is not to sell them,
Yeah.
but to make them available for anybody that would like a brick.
Yeah.
They can have a brick.
Okay, that's great.
Missed opportunity.
Yeah.
Make a donation to the,
Yeah, fun to swing set with some.
to the blessing box. Make a donation to the blessing box and get a brick.
Yeah. That could, yes, I like
Right?
that.
What is that? It's called
Yeah, do the blessing
right?
box and then you get a brick.
Yeah.
Oh, the blessing.
I really like that.
Maybe, we're not done with that.
Well, since we're talking about construction and the core team, definitely the
Just
It's
the
sit up
site
front.
considerations,
Yeah.
including playground and the parking lot, and working with the city. I guess it's been kind of the focus of the last
Yeah,
couple of meetings that we've had.
yeah. Yeah, so that was another question I was going to ask you, is when are we going back to, is the planning commission? What's the status of that? Is that coming in January?
Yeah, it was gonna be December's, but if I'm not mistaken, Rick's on for January.
So last I heard, what, did they move it to, okay.
They moved it from this month,
To January.
I believe so.
I mean, I think substantively, the things that the city was concerned about, the changes that we had made to the plans since they originally had approved, and, you know, really for budgetary reasons, had made some changes, and we made some promises and commitments to add some of that back in. I think substantively, we got to a place where we're all comfortable.
Yeah.
With a little extra money.
Yeah, yeah, basically it mostly most noticeably revolves around the open parking lot, about that. For budgetary purposes, it was going to be saved the way it is, and now we're gonna, I think, revert back to what the original plan was, which is more of just a drop-off. With more green space and less asphalt.
And new asphalt.
Yes. Yeah, it'll look good, it's just a little more expensive. And,
We've talked about the gym floor.
yeah,
Not
the middle
really
school
Is there
gym
any
floor,
update
is that
on
what you
that?
mean? The slippery gym floor.
Yeah, are we waiting from the company to do an assessment of the slipperiness?
Yes,
Okay.
work in progress. It's certainly an
Many,
issue.
many step process.
Yeah.
To assess.
Likely will be.
Yeah. And so they have a plan. I know that they've been using the old middle school gym temporarily, but when that comes down, they have to sort of, everybody has to work to share.
Yes, you know, so my sense is that, obviously all games are currently, happening in the old gym due to the flooring friction issue in the new gym. What Brad has talked about is, he feels we'll be able to schedule the balance of the 7 and 8 basketball games, boys and girls, either away or in the high school gym. And there's really not a lot of season left through after mid-January. So that's but I think perhaps in a right-minded way, we're hopeful that the manufacturer of the flooring system that's in the new middle school gym, Mondo, I believe it is, will come up with a solution to fix the slippery problem that we're having. And so this solution of going back there buys us more time.
Do we continue to use the new middle school gym for phys ed?
Yes.
And outside groups still using it for like basketball practice for like I think my 4th grader plays on a optimist team.
Yeah, so what we've noticed is, and I think this is logical, at least I believe it to be, the younger kids, while the floor, it's not slippier or more slippery. The younger the kids, the less problem they have. The older the kids, the more problems they have because they're more, quite frankly, athletic and agile. And so the slipperiness, if you will, or lack of friction on the floor becomes more pronounced the more athletic and older the kids are.
Sure.
So in other words, for a PE fourth grade class, it's not a big issue, or a fifth grade or sixth grade. You start getting into eighth, ninth, and above, it becomes more noticeable.
Anything else on the construction project?
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jay.
Thank you.
See ya.
We'll move on to business and finance and Beth's presentation.
Was the core team committee report done?
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure.
Unless there's a, yeah.
No, I don't have anything else to add.
I like to make sure.
Go ahead, Beth.
Okay, I have a brief update on some financial information, and then just a quick update as well on the bond millage setting process. So looking at our general fund as of the end of November, the revenues are where we expect them to be. The real change here, the state funding, of course, increased. The taxes, the property tax allocation, the Grandview Yard, semi-annual payments, so there's been no change there. Interest for the month, $24,219.32. We are continuing to see a good return on our investments as interest rates have significantly increased over the prior several months. Expenditures, we are within about 0.4% of where we budgeted to be at the end of November, so right on target. And our investments, as I mentioned, Star Ohio was at about 3.88 at the end of the month. It's closer to 4% now. The U.S. Bank weighted average is a little bit less, and that's only because we have some older investments that were done at lower rates, and as they mature, and we're putting new investments out there, we're gonna see that gradually increase. So the Permanent Improvement Fund, really the only update here, and we shared this with the Finance Committee at our last meeting, are the final 2 bullet points on upcoming expenditures. So we have budgeted for the replacement of the auditorium speakers, which was not part of the overall renovation project, and then also for some high-density music storage that was also not part of that project. So those are 2 things that we have added to the permanent improvement budget that are updates. Kevin,
Were those the speakers that were potentially going to be cleaned? Couldn't be cleaned.
The big ones right above the main stage.
Got it.
Some of them worked, though. The cleaning worked for.
For the ones under and above the balcony.
Oh, so those ones are.
Those are staying and they were cleaned, and
just the
they're
ones up
good,
front.
but the large ones above need replaced.
Gotcha.
And because of the age, we didn't think it was worth
Sure.
the money to try to repair those. So the construction fund, our November interest earnings were just over $16,000, and that brings our project to date up to $1,863,000. So we are exceeding what our initial estimates were when interest rates were lower, of course. So I am projecting that we are going to hit about the $1.9 million mark, which is pretty remarkable. Soft costs, 79.8%, construction costs, 93.7%. So you can really see that we're kind of winding down. The fund balance is down to about 6.7 million, and I have a construction draw ready to pay. So that'll be in the $5 million range soon. The investments, we only have a couple original investments left in the construction fund because of where we're at in the project, and we had those all scheduled to gradually mature. So there are a couple left, and that average rate is about 1.68. We do have some liquid funds in our Star Ohio account too, so we are earning, like I said, close to 4% now on the construction funds in that separate Star Ohio account.
But those construction costs, that's for all 3 phases, right?
It
That
is.
includes the 3rd phase, like
Yes.
the landscaping and all that stuff?
It does.
Okay.
Yep. Good question. No real update here other than the interest earnings. And then finally, just wanted to switch gears and just give a real brief update on the millage setting process that we talked about at the last board meeting. So again, this is something that we share publicly on an annual basis. The millage rate for our bond issue is calculated independently each year based on the needs to meet the bond principal and interest payments. And as we've talked about before, also taken into consideration what other funds we have available to help make those payments. So that process involves a certification to the county auditor. I made that on November 8th and reported the $908,000 of Grandview Yard funds that we have earmarked to help make those payments next year. And so we got the millage calculation back from the county on November 22nd. And that millage will stay exactly the same as what it was this year. So that really is what we expected. There was no real change in property valuation. So our millage model structure was a pretty flat structure throughout the life of the bond issue. And that is consistent with what we had projected. So just a quick reminder, that goes into effect calendar year 2023. So again, no change there. And then I have updated this chart to just reflect that, the 2023 rate, which we looked at this last month as well. So really the only change, like kind of looking to the future, the only real change in millage that we'll see are reductions if we have, like, dependent on increases in property valuation. So if we have a sizable increase in property valuation, then we're gonna see an offsetting reduction in that millage. If property valuation stayed constant through the life of this bond issue, that rate would stay just about identical through the end of the project.
Our property valuation, is that triannual?
So I think we have one more year. So the update for 2023 was not a triennial. It was, every 3 years we
Right.
have an update. And 2022
So like we
and
saw
20.
the drop from 21 to 22, might we see another drop?
We might,
Like
yes.
like
And the drop from, that you see here, the last update that we had actually the last two, the last reappraisal and the last triennial update, we had unprecedented increases in valuation, which is why we had the reduction.
Yeah.
So if we see something similar to that again, we will see a corresponding decrease as well. So it'll just kind of depend on how that plays out. But the amount of money that we collect from this bond levy from our taxpayers is the same amount of money, the same dollars that we had planned from day one. The millage rate will just get adjusted. If values go up, it'll stay the same if the value stays the same. So anyway, just kind of a snapshot of where we are millage-wise, and that's all I've got.
Thanks, Beth. Any questions before we move on to the Finance Committee report?
Can you remind me again of what it, like, 1 mil, what is that in Grandview? What is that approximately?
That's a good
Generate?
question.
I didn't know if it was something you knew off the top of your head or not.
Asked me that 4 years ago, I'd had it.
Yeah, let me.
4 years ago, she'd be able to answer that cold.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'll check on that and give you an update, Emily.
Okay.
Any report from the Finance Committee?
We met
Almost a month ago.
November 21st, and nothing of consequence to report. Beth gave a good report over where things that we talked about with the construction cost, the PI budget. Nothing, we met, but nothing to report.
Yeah, nothing major that's not covered in what she's already said.
Awesome.
So actually, Emily, to answer your question, it would be about 400,000, a little under 400,000, yeah.
I was just trying to like back into what was it, $908,000?
Yeah, so how many
a little
mills that
more than
saves?
2 mills.
Yep.
It's impressive. Just give no, your math is impressive. Sorry,
Oh.
you're impressive. The mill is impressive too.
Everybody, it's impressive.
You're impressive.
We're all impressed.
All impressed.
All right,
Set in stone, we're impressed.
you move on. Section 9C 1 through 10, we have recommendations for approval, including the reports, certificates, budget adjustments, and including a resolution, which we can talk about. But first, could I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Andy or Beth, do you want to say anything about the resolution? This is the easement,
So in number 9.
Yeah.
so it's a little unusual for us.
Well, this has to do with the parking lot that is east of, the new parking lot that is east of Larson Middle School. And there was a survey done initially, and after the survey was done, there was some confusion about the line and whose line and property is where. And then the long and short of it is the parking lot and corresponding sidewalk that was built encroached on city property in or around 2 feet. And so this resolution clears that up.
That sounds good.
And we really appreciate the city working with us on that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we had multiple meetings, and in the end, they were beyond gracious.
Yeah. Any questions or comments about anything else on the list?
Is it like a permanent easement?
Yes.
It's not like, doesn't last a certain amount of time?
No.
Okay.
All right, Beth, would you call the roll?
Mr. Bodie?
Aye.
Mrs. Gebhardt?
Aye.
Mr. Gousset?
Aye.
Mrs. Matney?
Aye.
And Ms. Wassman?
Aye.
Move on to 10A 1 through 14. These are all the recommendations for approval related to personnel. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Brought a smile to my face to see Chuck Amicon listed, former school board member, who has played probably 76 different roles related to the school, including volleyball scorer and everything else. Now he's changing roles once more.
He's gonna play some kickball.
He probably will.
Where is that one? I'm missing it.
It's, yeah, 13.
Oh.
He was a baseball coach.
Yeah, he's gonna play some sport, play some games.
Any other comments or questions? Beth, would you call the roll?
Mr. Bodie?
Aye.
Mrs. Gebhardt?
Aye.
Mr. Gousset?
Aye.
Mrs. Matney?
Aye.
Ms. Wassman?
Aye.
Do we have a policy committee report?
No.
Not some, no meeting since the
We
last
have not
time,
met,
so-
yeah, we have not
All
met
right.
since last meeting.
And how about teaching and learning?
We have not met.
We have not met.
All right. And then move on to co-curricular activities and extracurricular activities. Item 13A1. That's it, A1. Recommendations for approval of volunteers. Do I have a motion?
Hey, look at P there. Look at 1P. I don't know if we want.
Oh.
I don't know if this is someone we should be.
It's very,
Molly
And
McKenzie.
H.
Oh, H2?
Do we have enough people to vote on this one?
We do, but it's barely. Why did we get
scraping by.
full named, by the way?
You really did.
because it's the legal name that they have to use. It's a very
It's like,
official process.
This is what my child calls me when he wants
By the
my
way, look at
attention.
F. No one
I
pointed
know,
F
the mayor
out.
is there
Oh,
too.
right?
She's
I don't
not here to
know.
defend herself. We're behaving.
Now we know her middle name.
Greta Marie.
I will move. Do I have a
You gotta
second?
move, I can't do it.
Second.
All right. Beth, would you call the roll?
Mr. Bodie?
Aye.
Mrs. Gebhardt?
Aye.
Mr. Gousset?
Aye.
Mrs. Matney?
Aye.
And Ms. Wassman?
Abstain.
Do you really have to abstain when you're on there?
I did. I can't do it. I thought that was kind of good procedure
That's
to
probably-
abstain on myself.
We voted for you.
You know,
You're covered. We got your back.
thanks, President.
So a little unusual, just because it's the last meeting of the year, and we elected officers for this calendar year. But January, where we will vote on a president and vice president, but we have to have someone to start the meeting and do the first 5 minutes before we do that. So this is to elect a president pro tem for the organizational meeting in January. I would fill in that blank and move that we pass this with Emily Gephardt as the president pro tem.
even ask, you just took it
I
from
did.
me. No, you paused for a second.
This is just for
You can
5
second.
minutes of a meeting.
Fine, I'm second.
Molly seconds. Any discussion on that?
Emily says
Beth, would
no.
you call the roll?
Mr. Bodie?
Aye.
Mrs. Gephardt?
Aye.
Mr. Gousset?
Aye.
Mrs. Matney?
Aye.
Ms. Wassman?
Aye.
And then January meeting time and date.
The 4th and the 11th are the Wednesdays. We do have to have this before January 15th. If I may suggest, the 4th might be,
I will be out of town on the
yeah,
4th.
good, because I was gonna say no. I was gonna say, like,
It's
we're,
still break, I mean.
we're
for the
opening a
kids.
building in like 2 days. Maybe they can deal with us after we're in the chaos. That was gonna be my suggestion, was see,
The
we're
11th,
friends
We're on the
again.
same
We're
page
friends,
then.
we're friends again.
Excellent.
11th is fine with me. If it's
11th works for me.
Come on, Kevin, say yes. All right.
at 7? Is that, or do we, I forget how this goes. This
We
is
do, usually 7.
Calendar, it follows our format.
Yeah.
It's the second
Uh-huh.
Wednesday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then usually we do the tax hearing at 6:45.
6:45.
Yeah.
So Molly, would you care to make the motion here?
So moved. I would move that we have our organizational meeting at January 11th at 7 PM and the tax budget at 6:45 PM.
Do I have a second?
We're like,
myself.
are we meeting here? Are we gonna keep our board meetings here?
good
So
question.
we can, or we can move to the high school media center.
Ooh,
Can
move
we,
it
will
around.
that be too much pressure?
Let's do January's here.
Okay.
Do January here. Yeah.
No, what?
Chris, do you have a thought on this?
This room is specifically configured for board meetings. We would have to do more work up there in order.
So
that
let's
answers
definitely
that.
do
There we go.
January's meeting here.
Are we
Great.
here indefinitely for board meetings then?
Sounds like it.
When this was discussed before, and I think one of the things was because the door's there, it's easy
Yeah.
to find. It's very convenient for folks.
No,
You
I
can say
agree. I
yes.
think this is easier to get to than.
Great.
Just tell me yes, that's all I
Great.
want.
In case of the need for an executive session, would we just retire back to the, okay.
Yeah, 2311, which is where we
Come
just.
back down here to close the meeting?
Yes.
I think it was moved, was it seconded?
No, I don't think.
No,
it's a second.
I'll
second
second
it.
second myself.
Katie just said she would.
Okay. Beth, would you call the roll?
Mr. Bodie?
Aye.
Mrs. Gephardt?
Aye.
Mr. Gousset?
Aye.
Mrs. Matney?
Aye.
And Ms. Wassman?
Aye.
I've sent you all an invite.
Oh,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Speedy.
Oh, yeah, you
To what?
did. Wow.
Do you mean that Haley just sent us an invite?
No,
or
I
did
just
you?
sent it.
Oh.
You can see who it's from.
Mr. Bodie, before we adjourn, I wanted to let everybody know that the core committee meeting, core team, what are we calling ourselves? The
Strategic core team. Strategic planning core team.
Met last Wednesday and had a really great discussion talking about the vision and the language we want to use around that. So I just wanted to make sure that you guys knew that that was a really productive conversation. I think there was another meeting on Monday with the inquiry teams. I was not there, but it sounds like it was a great conversation. And then Angie led a really great wellness committee meeting today, and I'm there, this committee's not on the agenda like the board policy, and I'm wondering if it should be.
It was.
It used to be. I feel
Should we bring it back on?
I think it would be a good idea.
Back to
Okay.
Presidente.
I think it'd be a good idea to put it on there.
Everything down the list.
So if you're okay with it. The conversation was great today. Our teachers are doing a lot. They talked a lot about, I had my notes at home. I missed them, but the signs of suicide curriculum that's going through the entire K through 12 was really interesting and informative. There's a website for the wellness committee that's being worked out, so that looks really good. So if you're looking for more information, I suggest you go there. But it was a great discussion. So if we could have that as part of this committee, I think it'd be very relevant.
Yeah, great.
Thank you.
That's it.
I don't believe we're going to an executive session.
Not even for fun.
Can I just ask though, our next board retreat, because we have typically done that either end of January, beginning of February, will we set that date at our January 11th, you think? Or is that, I feel like
Maybe
that's
we
starting
can
to get a
do
little close to.
Email looking at.
Yeah, because I feel like if we wait until January 11th, people's calendars are going to
Yeah.
start to get, but,
And
I
I
mean, it
think-
might be a little bit premature at this moment to do it,
Yeah.
but.
I think in the past, we've tended to do them Saturday morning,
Mhm.
which to me works pretty well.
Yeah.
Maybe Haley, unless Andy beats you to it. Could we think about, yeah.
Like a, yeah, a
Like a
doodle
doodle.
poll.
Yeah.
It's usually on a Saturday in January, we could do, 21st, 28th.
So I'd
Let's
suggest
sit
could
down
you-
a doodle. You and I can work on that tomorrow.
There's no way to sound professional and say that. Send out a doodle.
Send out a doodle.
You send out a doodle?
A survey monkey.
You do a Google form?
Yeah, we did it last year on January 22nd.
It's a Sunday.
Well, that was last year, so.
Just saying. It's the Lunar New Year. I can't wait to read the doodle. Thank you, Haley, in advance.
Any other items for the board? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Oh, you didn't even get to.
Any
send yourself
objection?
out.
Mr. Bodie?
Aye.
Mrs. Gebhardt?
Aye.
Mr. Gousset?
Aye.
Mrs. Matney?
Aye.
Ms. Wasson?
Aye.
We are adjourned.